Welcome back. In our last couple of sessions, we covered the incredible cities and the buzzing economy of the Indus Valley. Today, we're going to get a bit more personal. We're looking at the things they left behind to really understand their art, their beliefs, and yeah, the huge mysteries that still keep us guessing.
All right, so here's what we've got on tap. We're going to start with the beautiful things they made, their art. Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of how they kept their world organized with seals and weights. After that, it's a dive into the spiritual side. What did they believe? Then we hit the big one, their language, which we still can't read. And we'll wrap up by looking at how they handled the end of life.
So, first things first, let's talk about what their hands created. I mean, the art and crafts of the Harappan people really give us a window into this incredibly sophisticated society that had a serious appreciation for both beauty and technical skill.
Check this out. This amazing little bronze figurine was found at Mohenjo-daro, and it just screams artistry. It's so full of life and attitude that one archaeologist actually described its pose as provocative. Just think, this tiny sculpture tells us so much about their mastery of metalwork and their really keen eye for the human form. And you know, this wasn't just a few talented people working on their own. This list shows us a super complex, specialized society. They had pros for everything, from making bricks to building boats. And get this, they might have been the world's very first goldsmiths and silversmiths. That's incredible.
And their skills weren't just for fancy statues. It extended to everyday stuff too, like their pottery. They had two main kinds. The plain, everyday pottery was common, for sure, but it's this red and black pottery that's the real showstopper, covered in these beautiful, intricate patterns from nature and geometry.
And listen, this was way more than just painting pots. This was a full-on industrial process. They used potter's wheels, fired them in kilns, and they even developed what many believe is the world's first glazed pottery. That's some serious technology for the time.
Okay, so let's move from objects of beauty to objects of, well, order. The seals, weights, and measures were the absolute backbone of their society. They were the tools that organized their trade and, in a way, defined their identity.
So the key material here is something called steatite, or soapstone. It's a really soft stone, easy to carve. And the Harappans used it to create thousands of their most iconic artifacts, the famous Indus Valley seals.
So we've found literally thousands of these beautifully detailed little objects. Each one has animals, symbols, and that mysterious script. But beyond being pretty, what on earth were they for? What was their job in day-to-day life?
And the answer, it seems, is twofold, which is just fascinating. On one hand, they were totally practical. Think of them like a personal signature or a company logo. You'd press it into clay to seal a bag of grain, to prove it was yours. But on the other hand, they were personal. People wore them like an amulet for spiritual protection.
Speaking of structure, it all came down to this number, 16. This single number was the base unit for their entire system of weights. It didn't matter if you were in Mohenjo-daro or Harappa, everything was weighed in multiples or fractions of 16. That level of standardization is just remarkable and absolutely essential for fair trade.
All right, let's shift gears. We've talked about what they made and how they traded. Now let's try to get inside their heads and hearts. Since we can't read their writing, we have to piece together their spiritual world from the clues they left behind, like figurines and symbols.
So what's the most common religious item we find? It's these terracotta female figurines. We find them everywhere. And what that points to is a huge belief system centered on a powerful female deity, a mother goddess who likely represented fertility, creation, the earth itself. But it wasn't just about a goddess. We also see this incredibly powerful male god. You'll often hear scholars call him Proto-Shiva because the way he's shown, sitting like a yogi with a horn crown, surrounded by animals, looks a lot like a very early version of the Hindu god Lord Shiva, the master of beasts.
So you see, their worship was this amazing mix of different ideas. On one hand, they clearly revered the natural world. The people tree and the hump bull show up all the time on seals. But at the same time, they used these powerful abstract stone symbols that represented the male and female creative forces of life.
And this is the real kicker. These ancient beliefs didn't just fade away. They laid a deep cultural foundation. Things like tree worship or reverence for a mother goddess. These are symbols and practices that you can still see alive and well in Hinduism today. It's an incredible connection. Okay, we've learned a ton, but now we come to the single biggest, most frustrating mystery of all. We can see their writing,
It's on thousands of seals and pots. We have no idea what it says.
And we're not talking about a few dozen squiggles here. Archaeologists have cataloged over 400 unique symbols. That tells us this was a complex, fully developed written language, capable of expressing some really sophisticated ideas.
And as if it wasn't hard enough to crack, scholars think they used a really unusual writing style called Boosterfedden. Just imagine writing one line from right to left and then the next line from left to right, snaking back and forth across the page like an ox plowing a field. It just adds another layer to this massive puzzle.
So, the big question, the one everyone argues about, is this. What family of languages does it belong to? Is it an early form of Sanskrit, part of the Indo-European group? Or is it related to the Dravidian languages that are still spoken in southern India today? The debate is fierce.
But here's the honest truth. Without a Rosetta Stone, some artifact with the same text in a language we do know, it's all just educated guesswork. Every single claim is based on interpretation, not solid proof. Their voice remains silent.
Okay, for our final chapter, we're going to look at something deeply human, something every culture has to deal with. By looking at their burials, we get a little insight into how they thought about life, death, and maybe, just maybe, the afterlife.
And what we find is there wasn't just one way. They had different practices in different places. You see coffin burials over in Surkotata, but simple pit burials in Kalibangan. And the discovery of joint burials, a man and a woman together, raises all sorts of fascinating questions about their relationships and family structures.
So we end on this final, pretty profound thought. Their script, all their laws, their stories, their names, is completely lost to us. It's gone. And yet elements of their religious rituals, their beliefs, those have survived for 4,000 years. So what does that tell you about what really lasts in a civilization? Maybe it's not the words we write down, but the shared rituals and beliefs we pass on that form the most enduring legacy of all.